As I have been studying the quantum effect in a series of personal real-time stories, I have come to realize that many observers also include stories that don't quite fit into the ME quantum effect categories. Although the stories seem to have similar elements, i.e. experiences that are interdimensional in nature, this series of videos will share some of the other strange realities that ME observers are experiencing. As usual, all intelligent conversation is encouraged. However, any belligerent behavior towards any of the brave subscribers sharing their hard-to-tell stories today will be removed. Story 1. I Can't Move. I want to share my experiences with you. I have on many occasions been lying in bed, wide awake, but I feel like I'm being held down. I can't move. And then, what I can only describe as the most evil face comes rushing at me. It takes everything I have as a grown man to move. It really scares me to think what might happen if someday I was unable to. D. Story 2, UFO in southern Maine. This happened in the winter of 2011. We were driving down Route 100. The night before, I had explained to my then 8-year-old son what Orion's belt looked like. It was right in front of us. As I was telling my son to look, I saw two lights about 3 times bigger than the size of car headlights. They were a bus length apart and directly across from each other. There was another orb-looking light that was kind of see-through. It was in front and right above the light on the right. I had my boyfriend pull over and we all got out. The car is the type that locks as soon as you get out, and that's for later on in the story. We stood there looking at it for like 15 seconds. I could hear my son yelling he was going to be abducted. He was pulling on the door handle trying to get in the car, but he couldn't because it was auto-locked when we got out. I could feel his energy and how scared he was. As my son continued to pull on the handle, my boyfriend and I looked at each other. From across the car, we were both thinking, is this what we think it is? And then we both looked up and all 3 lights were gone. I called the public safety department and asked if anybody else had seen anything, but they said nobody had. I felt like an idiot and I hung up. None of us will ever forget that night. In Story 3, my personal paranormal story as a child. Hey Jinx, when I was 8 years old, I had an experience that embedded itself deep into my memory. It will be there forever. One night, I was sound asleep in my bed, and with no warning, I woke up to sudden panic. I opened my eyes, and immediately next to me, I felt a presence. To my horror, there was a dark shadow figure standing next to the bed. It was the shape of a man in a top hat. It was peering down at me, and I rubbed my eyes to make sure I was really awake, and unfortunately, I was. This was really happening to me. My heart raced, and I was in a frenzy. My mind was spinning with what to do. Just before I was able to yell out for my parents, the shadow person grabbed my neck and started to strangle me. It was absolutely horrifying. I felt choking. It was real. I thought I was going to die. It finally stopped and I gasped for air. I started sobbing, and he was gone in an instant. I ran to my parents' room and my mother calmed me down and reassured me that I must have just been dreaming. I felt so defeated. I didn't try to argue with her about how sure I was awake at the time. But thankfully, I never saw it again. E. Story 4, Jinx Cat and the Hatman. Before moving on, I have the need to interject my own story. When I was 12 years old, I would spend every other weekend at my dad's. At the time, they lived in a rental house. During the few years that we lived there, an odd number of occurrences happened. Right now, I just want to share one. It was a weekend night, and I, sharing a room with my sister, was wanting to be alone and decided to sleep on the couch in the living room. It was about 3 in the morning and the rest of the house was asleep. Suddenly, the TV flipped on. It was back in 1989 or 90, so it was a manual TV with a turn dial and an actual off button that you had to push in on the TV. Yeah, I'm that old. The thing started shifting through channels and shut off. I heard something coming from the front entryway. I looked over from the couch and on the ground I saw a shadow of a tall man wearing a top hat. I was terrified. I sat still and I watched it for probably 15 minutes or so, and then it just faded away. There was no change in lighting. It had been facing me for a good 15 minutes. I couldn't move. I literally hid under the blanket the rest of the night. It was the first time I've ever seen a shadow person. I have seen them 3 times total, but this was the only time that I ever saw the one in the tall top hat. Story 5. This happened when I was in high school. This event happened when I was in high school in 1985. I was in grade 9 and was able to have a friend sleep over for the night. My friend and I stayed in my oldest brother's bedroom, which was in the basement. At the time, he had already moved out. We shared a queen-size bed and we talked all through the night. I don't know what time it was, but late sometime into the night, an orb appeared in the room. It was pale blue, translucent, and almost the size of a volleyball, but slightly smaller. I looked directly at it, and it came towards me fast. I ducked under the covers, popped my head out, and saw it on the other side of the room. Once again, it came towards me fast. My friend didn't see it. She was scared, and she hid under the blankets when I shouted. This kept up for a while, maybe 5 to 10 minutes before it was finally gone. I never saw it again. C. Story 6. I could talk to dead people. Where do I even begin? When I was a young girl, I used to see and talk to dead people. They'd be in my room, in the basement of the house, and in rooms and hallways of the other people's houses. At the time, I neither knew they were dead, nor did I know that I wasn't supposed to see them. I also learned that not everybody else saw them. When I told my mother, she just assumed I had imaginary friends. Lots of them. It was during puberty that I started seeing shadow people and these other things that I referred to as mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging shadow people. Those things didn't have much of a human form, but I could see them nonetheless. These things would be watching me sometimes from the corners of the ceiling. Sometimes they'd even get into bed with me at night. I'd turn over and there would be this dark mass. I never saw a face. The scariest one of these things is one that looks like he's at least 8 feet tall. He's wearing a trench coat and a wide, tall hat. He used to blend in with the shadows in my room and just watch me sleep, I guess. Then when I'd wake up and look in his direction, he'd stand up and I'd see his silhouette. He came to be a watcher of some sort, and it looks like he orders the knuckle draggers around. We even had one that looked like a squirrel that my mother used to chase around the house with a broom. It would disappear inside the chimney or attic. I hadn't seen these horrible things again until July 2016. Then they were in my dreams, attacking me. The knuckle draggers were trying to get inside. I've had several dreams since then where they've come for me, and I've had several times where I've started seeing them in my home, sometimes in broad daylight. I now sleep with the light on. J.
I don't know if I'm gonna need to break this up for you, because the paranormal stuff has been ongoing for a while now. I think it's best if I do a couple of videos for you, segmented, so you can choose the first one. I have moved around quite a bit. I have only lived in the house once. The first apartment where I started to experience stuff, 1 bedroom, 1 living room, kitchen, quite big but few rooms. I started seeing stuff in the corner of my eye, like there was something there. And after a while I starting to seeing like shadows or something just disappearing through a doorway or around the corner or something like that in that apartment. And then there was this say paranormal event. Was when I was turning 30. There was a lot of guests at the party, but a couple of guests staying over at my place. I was sleeping on the couch, and a friend of mine also slept on the couch. There was like this angled couch. I was having the head towards one of the ends, and he had the head towards the other end, so our feet was like behind the couch. At his end there was this, I think you call it draping, and in the middle of the night I woke up and I saw this entity, something. It was dark, no, I couldn't see no face, no nothing. It was dark, like having a cape, and it was big and it was black. It didn't feel friendly, and I was leaning over because it was behind the drapes. I was thinking it was just something in my eye because I was tired or something like that, shadow. But when I was leaning over, it like moved with the drapes, so I could see it was something there. I was a bit scared, so to speak, and this just was a couple of seconds. And then that entity just disappeared. But pillows of the sofa where my friend was lying, it was like if someone put their hands standing behind the sofa or the couch and putting the hands on the pillows and like drawing this over the pillows. That was the kind of motion that I was sensing. I just saw the motion in the pillows, but I didn't see like any hands or something like that. I just saw the pillows like pushing in, and it's like a wave over to my feet. So I was like drawing my feet back, and then I started trying to warn my friend, so I started kicking him in his legs and screaming, "Watch out, man, watch out!" And he was like, you know, all daisy and I don't know. Yeah, it's like, you know, dimmed out, just woke up and whoa, what's going on? And I was like, "Oh, scream, watch out!" And then all of a sudden, it was gone. Nothing more.
I have received so many of these stories that have no place to go that it is not possible to include them all in this one video. So this will be the first in a series dedicated specifically to the otherworld situations of IMI and quantum effect observers. Like our personal real-time stories of IMI, these stories show that our reality may not be what we think it is. So tell your story, write it down, send it in, and be heard. Because what I have found is, I'm definitely not alone.